everyone, so today I'm going to read a bit from The Great Hamster Massacre, which is by Davies, and it's a book that I read to both my children as they were growing up, and when I asked them last night which book they remembered most fondly from their childhood, this was the one. And it is intended to be humorous. Please don't worry, no hamsters were injured or maimed in the making of this book. It is an act entirely of fiction, which means that it's totally made up. So the premise is that there's two children and they are desperate for a pet. Mum is less keen. The first hamster Nana told us all about was named Jeff. Jeff was Mum's best friend Shirley's hamster, from when she and Shirley had lived on the same street when they were girls. Shirley had 6 brothers in her house and a hamster, and an extension, which was an extra room on the back of the house that Mum's house didn't have. The extension had sliding doors. One day, Mum and Shirley and some of Shirley's brothers were playing with Jeff in the extension. Jeff was out of his cage, which Shirley's mum didn't mind, as long as Shirley and Mum picked up his poop afterwards and put it in the trash before Shirley's dinner was ready. But Shirley's youngest brother kept picking up Jeff's poop too and chasing Mum and Shirley with it, and Mum and Shirley were screaming and running in and out of the sliding doors to escape from him, and Shirley's youngest brother was chasing them, and Mum and Shirley were screaming even more and sliding the doors shut on Shirley's youngest brother as quickly as they could. And Jeff was running around too, because that's what hamsters do when they're allowed out of their cages. And Mum ran towards the sliding doors and screamed and slid them open, and Shirley's brother ran after her, and Mum ran through the sliding doors into the garden and screamed and slid them shut. And when she slid them shut, she heard another little scream from low down. And she looked to see what it was, and there, on her side of the door, in the garden, was the front half of Jeff. And she looked through the sliding doors, and there, on the other side of the door, in the extension, was the back half of Jeff, and the sliding doors were shut tight in between. The second hamster Nana told us all about was named Bernard. Bernard was a big, fat, orange hamster with tiny black eyes that Dad bought Mum for her 21st birthday. Mum didn't really want a hamster for her 21st birthday, but Dad bought her one because Shirley told him all about how Mum had cut Jeff in half with the sliding doors when they were little girls, and how sad she had been. And Dad thought that maybe now she was grown up, it would be funny if he bought her a hamster of her own. Anyway, what Mum really wanted for her birthday was a green cashmere coat. She'd seen the coat in a shop when she was in town with Shirley. It was the most beautiful and the most green and the most expensive coat that Mum and Shirley had ever seen, and Mum showed it to Dad every time they went past it. Cue lovely coat. The night before Mum's birthday, Dad told Mum that he had bought her a birthday present that was lovely and soft and warm. Mum was sure it was the cashmere coat. In the morning, when Dad gave Mum a big fat orange hamster, Mum was not very pleased. But she thought that seeing as Dad had given her a hamster, she had better call it something. So she named it Bernard, and she put its cage on the table in the kitchen, and she started doing lots of tidying and cleaning because she was having a birthday party that night. When everything was nearly ready, Mum took Bernard's cage off the table because Bernard looked like the least clean and tidy thing in the house, and she put Bernard's cage on the shelf under the coat hooks in the closet under the stairs. She looked at Bernard and thought, he's very nice, really, and she remembered how much she liked Jeff before she killed him by mistake, and she thought how nice it would be to have a hamster after all. She took Bernard out of his cage and she stroked him on his back, and he was very lovely and very soft and very warm, and she kissed him on the head and put him back in the cage and shut the closet door. And then the doorbell rang, and Mum went to answer it, and it was Shirley. She was wearing the green cashmere coat. She'd walked past the shop that morning and bought it on sale for half price. Shirley looked very nice in the coat, and Mum thought how nice she would have looked in it if it was her coat. Dad and Shirley laughed when Mum told them how she'd thought Dad was getting her the coat for her birthday, and then he'd given her a hamster, and Mum laughed too, but only a bit, because she didn't think it was all that funny. and she took Shirley's beautiful green cashmere coat and she hung it up in the closet on the hooks above Bernard's cage. When the party was over and it was time for everyone to go home, Mum went into the closet to get everyone's coats. She took down Shirley's green cashmere coat and was just thinking how beautiful and how green and how soft it was, when she noticed that in the back of the coat, just where Shirley's bottom would be if she were wearing it, there was a hole. She didn't remember the hole being there when she hung the coat up, and she was just wondering how it might have gotten there when she saw something in Bernard's cage. Right there, in the middle of the cage, was a very beautiful, very green, very soft-looking nest. Mum lifted up the top of the nest and she screamed, "Ah, Bernard!" He was lying on his back in the middle of the nest with his legs in the air, his little black eyes fixed and bulging, and his mouth, which was wide open, was full of very beautiful, very green, very expensive cashmere coat. And that, said Nana, was the end of Bernard.